Why is the left refusing to protect young girls and all the work they put in to their moment and their competitions?
That's a good question. Now, I'm going to talk to you about that today. I'm going to talk to you about female boxing today. Don't worry, don't click off. It's going to be good. Specifically, I want to talk about this claim that the Olympics basically allowed a man beat the shit out of women and win a gold medal in the process in the last Olympics. Stay with me here. Don't worry. I'll tell you everything you need to know, so you don't need to be a sports fan to follow what I'm going to talk about today. But those of you who have watched the channel for a while might remember I covered this story in a roundup of the Olympics last year. You might remember Imane Khelif, the Algerian boxer that faced some controversy during the Olympics. Here's the backstory for you guys, okay? Imane Khelif, in her very first bout of the Olympics, was fighting against an Italian lady. Her name was Angela Carini. They exchanged a few punches. 46 seconds into the bout, Angela Carini goes, yeah, I'm not doing this. I've had enough. She would then proceed to say later on that she had never been hit that hard. It later emerges that Imane Khelif in a previous competition had failed a gender test. She, as well as another fighter, Lin Yuteng from Taiwan, who coincidentally also won gold in a different weight class at last year's Olympics. They were both disqualified from a previous competition for failing a gender test. The content of this gender test is really what becomes controversial. In boxing competitions, they just check your chromosomes with a PCR test. Now, this is where it gets complicated. Imane Khelif happens to have XY chromosomes. The IBA, the organization that disqualified Imane Khelif in earlier competition, has released the results of the sex report, and it shows that Imane Khelif does have XY chromosomes, as you would expect in a man. So basically, in the Olympics last year, the rule was these athletes were allowed to compete as female as long as their passport shows they're female, right? And I will add that there's no evidence that Imane Khelif has ever identified as anything other than female. So she would then go on to win gold, as I told you earlier. So post-Olympics, World Boxing has now announced mandatory sex testing for people seeking to compete in female sports. So that is the context of this video today, okay? Now you're ready to hear what Fox News had to say. Let's get it.
Three Wire Sports is reporting that in chromosome tests given amid the International Boxing Association's 2022-2023 World Championships, Imane Khelif's DNA showed XY markers with male karyotypes. Now, this person won the gold, as you said, in women's boxing in 2024. Of course, said, I'm not transgender. It's a lot of legal gobbledygook there, but...
So what Laura Ingraham, the Fox News anchor there, is calling gobbledygook there is really the nuance in this particular discussion. Yes, Imane Khelif has XY chromosomes. But then, how can she be female? As we've come to learn, she has never identified as anything other than female throughout her life. And this isn't a case of being transgender. So how can she have XY chromosomes and still be a woman? How can she be a woman if she has elevated levels of testosterone? But there are biological explanations for this. Rare conditions where a woman can have XY chromosomes while still being phenotypically, so physically female. And these differences in sexual developments are a group of conditions involving your genes, your hormones, and your reproductive organs. Obviously, this is not verified. We don't know exactly what the condition of Imane Khelif is. It is obviously personal. To be fair, maybe not so personal because she's in competition with other people here, in boxing no less, right? But I'll give you an example of a condition that can cause this. An example is the Swyer syndrome, which is a rare genetic condition in which an individual has one X chromosome and one Y chromosome, which is typically found in males. But at the same time, they have female reproductive structures. And this is because of mutations to the SRY gene, which essentially initiates male sex development. A PCR test would pick up a person with this particular condition, this particular syndrome, as a man, even if they don't have any of the reproductive structures of the man, even if they aren't really a man, right? So people have to interpret that, because just because a PCR test says they are a man doesn't necessarily translate to them having the features of a man, because clearly a PCR test isn't always enough. Here's a further question for you. Should this be treated as a genetic advantage? Like what is sports without genetic advantages? People contest with advantages all the time. So some people argue that Michael Phelps, the greatest Olympic swimmer of all time, in my book, some people have said that he had physical advantages where his body produced less lactic acid compared to his competitors. Now, is this cheating if it is natural? That's a question I want to ask you guys today. But before we go ahead, I want to say categorically, personally, I do not want to see transgender women in women's sports. That's my opinion, right? That is my line. If you were male at birth and you have the full expression of male coding, you should not be in female sports. You should not be in female sports. So let's go back to the Fox News segment. There are a few things there I want to clean up, okay? Watch.
Come on. Come on, Jillian.
This is the most offensive for the following reasons. Number one, I'm not transgender, which means I'm not even on puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones, which makes this individual far more dangerous in a combat sport. It's arguably the highest level of achievement in sports, a gold medal that you have stripped away from the women that have been studying or training their entire lives for this moment. And the fact that the Olympics actually gaslit all of us who had eyes. I could sit here and explain to you what that means, XY chromosomes, XY karyotypes. I own a sports medicine facility, but do you need me to? Or do your eyes tell you that something is not right here?
So, I don't know why Laura Ingraham perpetually looks constipated here, but there you go. So again, the guest here talks about the XY chromosome thing, and then she says something very, very interesting. You might have missed it if you were not really paying attention. She says, do your eyes tell you that something is not right here? That she says that. So I sat there and I was thinking to myself, so if you find the chromosome explanation doesn't quite explain away the nuance, so you just use your eyes, eh? I'm assuming that she's not one of those perverts that wants sports organizations to strip people naked in a poorly lit room and examine that they have the right parts, you know? And again, even if we did that, you wouldn't find what you're looking for if her condition is the Swyer syndrome, for example. So does it come down to how she looks? Wait till you see a woman with full facial hair. These are things that happen. These things are not common, but they happen. And that is why you have to acknowledge the nuance.
And I used to be so much softer and so much more empathetic, but I am sick and tired of this. Enough is enough. We are done seeing women get their face bashed in a boxing ring on an international stage. And you know what? If the Democrats want to go down with this ship, I would say let them. But how many more women are going to suffer while that ship sinks?
And I just keep thinking, Jillian, back to my old days playing field hockey and softball. And, you know, there was another incident where I guess there was a trans athlete playing women's softball as a pitcher, you know, the other day. And I just thought to myself, wow. I mean, I was a pitcher, probably wouldn't have had that spot on the team. And, you know, I was a center fielder, probably wouldn't have had that spot on the team. You know, if the situation were different and the year was different. And that just... The sisterhood of sports, for women's sports and girls' sports, those are still among some of my best friends. Still. And that changes it.
It completely changes it. And again, this is not about disrespecting people who are trans. People who are trans, I will say this again for the 100th time, deserve respect and to live dignified lives. This is about fairness and this is about safety. Inclusion comes second to those two things in sports, period.
Okay, so she keeps bringing up this old transgender people here. There is no evidence that what is going on here is a transgender situation. She is just using that to fit the narrative she wants to push. And she ends here by saying biological males should not be allowed in female sports. Completely agree. But let's explore that a little bit, right? What is a biological male? A biological male is defined by sex chromosomes, reproductive organs, and things like other biological characteristics. Well, clearly not all of these criteria apply to Imane Khelif. To be honest, maybe it should be better referenced as intersex. I don't know. I'm sure somebody will correct me in the chat about what the clarification there about being intersex or not. As a person who has a fundamentally conservative mindset on this particular issue, this is one of those moments where I realize what we've heard all along from scientists. Gender is indeed a spectrum. There are gray areas in between our binary descriptors of male and female. So, and Imane Khelif is a great example of that. So rather than try to keep these individuals out of sports, some organizations like World Athletics have implemented policies that require intersex athletes to suppress testosterone levels to compete in women's categories. Of course, the complication there is that now you're messing with people's hormones, right? And you can really mess people up that way. I mean, just ask any woman in your life who has gone through menopause or period. Those are things with hormones being all over the place, right? Just ask them how they feel about their hormones getting messed with. And the other question is that fair competition when you're messing with people's hormones in order to put them at a baseline that you think is comparable to other athletes? Is that fair? But maybe that is the price that we have to pay in order to compete fairly in women's sports. But here's an interesting thought for you. So I watch the UFC, which is basically mixed martial arts if you follow combat sports. There has been talk about opening up performance enhancing drugs for all athletes. Many of them try to cheat anyways, right? In jiu-jitsu, it is basically accepted that everybody cheats. So should sporting organizations just let everybody juice themselves? That's the question, right? Bodybuilders do this all the time. So imagine if they all had access to testosterone and all the PEDs. Would that level the playing field? I know I just sprung that on you. I literally just went from talking about men in women's sports to saying allow everybody to juice themselves, allow everybody to use PEDs. But that's what we do sometimes here, right? We try and go all over the place. But think about it. If that could be done safely, should they do it? Is that a much better solution than trying to control the hormones of certain athletes in order to sort of match up with what they consider to be the baseline for females, for example? But think about it. If that could be done safely, should they do it? I'm talking Ben Johnson level of juicing, if you're familiar with Canadian athletics. I'm talking Ben Johnson level of juicing and the result for everybody. I think I've opened up a bit of a Pandora's box here. Maybe I should shut up now. But how do you guys feel about this? Let me know what you think in the comment section. And if you're new to the channel, support your boy and subscribe to the channel. I appreciate you. See you next time. Take care.